Uh, I would say it's been quite a while since I used to actively conduct workshops on 7 habits in the industry. And many more years since I read this book, almost 3 decades ago. Um, but when Professor Srinivas called and said casually, "Would you like to give a talk on 7 habits?" I was very delighted. At least it gives me an opportunity to, revisit the entire my experience in talking about this great book. Uh, and I'm sure all of you, and this is a very simple, popular bestseller book. Everybody must have, had your own personal copies also. Uh, or even if you do not have a personal copy, you can always check online. There's so much of information about this book because of popularity and usefulness of this book. Um, I would, before I start on how this book um actually makes a significant difference to all of us, especially during these times, um, is the book is not just a business management bestseller the way it is projected to be. And that's what I have even mentioned that there is hardly any information about business and management. But definitely there is a lot to take away on management of self and self leadership. And no wonder uh, the book is being considered to be a bestseller for the leadership training, okay, for various industries across the world. The book is being considered and turned out to be a leadership training book, as well as the workshop, as well as your internal leadership pipeline to be created. People have been using and embarking on this particular book, and to the extent of even Bill Clinton asking Covey to guide his presidency on this particular book. Okay, so to that extent, uh, it is considered more to be a self leadership, personal leadership book. I wouldn't call it as a self help book uh, because Covey himself says that he drew on several self help books. Uh, I'll take you through how he has gone through 200 years of literature on these so-called success stories of people, and how he systematically reviewed the concept of success. Okay, so I would say that, and first of all, very happy to see, even though these things are something which are not unfamiliar to any of us here, and something which is very, very sounds and looks very commonsensical. But as you all know, these are not common sense, because common sense is highly unprevalent, least thing to be seen. So, since common sense probably is still common sense, but not common practice. Okay, so since these differentiations are there in the way we experience things, it's still the more pertinent for us to come together and revisit these things which all of us have experienced, all of us are knowing. But in management literature, as we always say, knowing and doing gap is something which is very difficult to bridge. Okay, so how much we focus, being an educational institute, how much we focus on building on the knowledge and skills. Okay, so but how about the practice, the application? Now, and we being in academic world, we always strive for these ideals. Nothing wrong in striving to be ideal. Okay, so these are some of the ideals which guides us through our professional, personal lives. Okay, though I do not really want to say or distribute life into professional life and personal life. This is again another misunderstanding which all of us have, that we say professional lives and personal lives. Is it only these two lives which we lead? So there are a lot of these things which we can debate, discuss, and throughout this series of talks, which we will be only reinforcing what we already know. please do not look for something new. What's new? And that's our fetish for learning something new. And you will realize there is absolutely no new learnings. Uh, it's all the journey of learning, relearning some of the things which we have already learned. We try to unlearn that based on our experiences, based on the feedback. So the journey keeps going on like this. So absolutely, maybe new revelations, but something which is out of the world, I don't think there is something like that, especially through this book. Okay, and this is definitely not something which is a kind of a book review. I wouldn't call this our meeting as something which is a book review kind of a thing. I'm sure you all had in your college life or professional lives. You must have seen these. Not only read this book, had probably presented it, probably experienced it, probably lived these habits also. Okay, so I do not want to further give any declarations and that how much you already know. We should not be overwhelmed by our own knowledge and experiences. That's the first thing which we must acknowledge. The more we know, more hardened we become, and the more we become not very open to learning. But I'm very thankful to all of you who are present here, that in spite of something which is so commonsensical, uh, we felt that there must be something which we can take away, from this particular habits which we are going to talk about. Okay, and so let's begin. And I have see. I don't believe in this PPT, but then some visual anchor for our discussion. Hence, I'm presenting this. So, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Franklin Covey. And I had an opportunity to get master certified on some of these things and help co-facilitate several of the other younger, trainers so that they can take through these learnings in their respective organizations also. So with some of those experiences, I'll be talking, and you can always join anytime. You can stop me anytime. We can have a discussion, debate. So as most of you have read, the book doesn't start with Seven Habits directly. And
Ma'am,
also, yes.
we're not able to see the PPT.
Okay, one second.
Yeah.
Are you able to see?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So this particular leadership training or the workshops, which we call it as, we are turning those, whatever the seven maxims the book offers, the very digestible maxims which it offers, we are trying to turn that into something which is practical and something which is applicable, okay, to all of us. So as I was just saying, the book, if you have read the book and seen the book doesn't really starts off with listing the seven habits and how to develop these habits. Okay, it starts with something called principles and values, which we call it as the foundational principles, and the seven habits are an embodiment of these principles and values. And the Covey's, several in its 432 pages of this particular book, hundreds of pages run into just giving these foundational principles. And then somewhere in building of this, character building, he talks about these seven habits. And as I already said, these are something which are not invented by him. He has heavily drawn from things like, the popular management literature. He was heavily influenced by Peter Drucker. He was influenced by Carl Rogers, which we psychologists really watch for. And he's also drawn heavily from Gita, Bible, Quran, So he doesn't take credit for the 7 habits because it's drawn from the literature. The only credit which we should give it to him is the way he organized these things, the way he consolidated the literature around the concept of success, around the concept of efficiency, and this around the concept of the so-called effective people. Okay, how the words of success and efficiency are replaced by his literature, and the way he has turned out the literature and understood, he called it as effective. And later on, the books like Effectiveness to Greatness, The Eighth Habit, and other books have come. But then he challenges the understanding of success. Okay, so here the contribution is primarily in the way the 7 habits are arranged. I wouldn't say sequentially because there's a lot of an overlap in these 7 habits. And I want you to not get overwhelmed by uh, the so much of goodness coming here. We keep getting so much of advice from everywhere. Our own, Indian literature, our own, writings, our own literature, our own scriptures, our own Puranas. There is so much to learn. Then what is so much about this 7 habits? As I already said, it's only in the way he positioned it, organized it, gave a organizing framework to it, and gave us a lens to view life and success in a different manner. Okay, and how do we imbibe these 7 habits? He starts with the foundational principles and values, and he starts off with saying, how do we generally develop habits? The entire book is about success and challenging the concept of success and leading to effectiveness, which we will talk about. But he starts off with asking, how do we develop habits? Now, being in this particular field, I can technically take you through how do we develop habits from a cognitive angle and other perspective. But that's not our aim here. From a populist perspective, for a common understanding, how do we develop habits? So he says that in a simple terms, like there is some amount of a knowledge embedded in it, what to do, why to do, which is the knowledge, and the skill, and most important, desire. So if you really see what to do and why to do, that's where all of us are learning. Okay, that's the learning space. And how to go about doing it, the techniques is something which is skill. And we heavily, Covey says, in modern day life, a lot of emphasis is there on the knowledge and the skill. But we really do not know how to navigate ourselves on this desire part of the story. We are alone on that space. Whereas knowledge and skills, there are so many supporters, so many helpers to acquire this knowledge and skill. We can at least seek some help. But in terms of desire, we are alone. We have to navigate our own life. And as he says, this knowledge, skill, and desire, these 3 things would combine to form a habit. Okay, and you can always say, I have knowledge and skill. With this, I already have certain pre-existing habits. I do not really have desire, but it's still a habit. You can always argue that. As Covey says, the if you have knowledge and skill and it is a habit, but you do not have a desire, it might not be a habit. It could be an event, okay, which you have been doing. Okay, and another thing to be noticed is, what are those consistent patterns of our behavior which underlying knowledge, skill, and desire are there, that we are not able to see that these are something which are consistent patterns of our behavior. Some are conscious habits, some are unconscious habits. I'll not get into the unconscious habits, but the conscious habits which we try to develop and inculcate, if we restrict our discussion to that, as Covey says, knowledge, skill, and desire. Let's say, for example, we keep getting this, especially during this pandemic, we keep getting so many emailers on announcements on the yoga and other things. All of us here believe that exercise is good for our life, or for our well-being, for our health. But how many of us really do it? As I said already, knowing and doing. Okay, so we know the importance of yoga, what to do, why to do, what to do in yoga, what is the Patanjali yoga or other Vipassana. There are so many things in yoga which we can get knowledge on, and we have all of that. Even we know why to do yoga. So what to and why to is already there. Skill, even we must have learned the various techniques, asanas, pranayama. There are so many things which we have already learned. Then why don't it turns out to be demonstrable behavior? There Kavi says, though he hasn't given the yoga example, the desire to do something else is more stronger than the desire to do yoga. So the desire element is somewhere missing for this particular yoga to be done daily in the morning. We do not form doing yoga as a habit. Okay, it remains as a desirable thing to do, and because of its knowledge and skill, but it doesn't convert into behavior. So something else which is more desirable is taking over than this. So this is how we develop habits, is in a very simple manner Covey tries to tell, not much of a scientific basis to it, because you have so much of popular literature. Is it 21 days which it takes to form a habit, or 66 days? When it comes to science, we have always contradictory evidence and mixed results, and we blame it on the methodological error and other kind of things. Another important thing, foundational principle which he talks about, as you can see in the slide, is see, the iceberg model is most used and abused in various different setups. We can use this iceberg to depict any kind of a phenomenon which we want to drive. And when we talk of a human self, personality, iceberg is a really a good, very popular analogy. Okay, so here Covey draws on these two things. Now, what does this really indicate to you? If you have read the book, he says that when he was going through 200 years of literature on the concept of success, because he used to follow a lot of self-help books during that time, including your Dale Carnegie's of the world. So he was smitten by these kind of things like what is really success? How is it understood? And when he has gone through the literature, uh, he says he draws this parallel on personality ethic and the character ethic. Okay, he says that the first 150 years of literature has focused on the concept of success as drawn from people's principles like courage, justice, integrity, honesty, humbleness, sincerity. So all the virtuous, righteous things have been considered to be instrumental in people being successful. And that's what he calls it as character ethics. So there is a heavy reliance on these characteristics which determine the character of the person and the success and other things in life. But the later part of the literature which he was browsing through, the 50 years, the 50 years of literature from around 1920s onwards, which he says, there is a heavy reliance on, communication, public image, attitude, behavior, something which is very observable, demonstrable things, more on the skills. Okay, so more on the public image, how you are perceived. Okay, and I mean, there is nothing here, we are not putting any value judgment on any of these things, as Bobby always says. Okay, so it's just an observation that the 50 years of literature from 1920s onwards, if you see, there is a heavy reliance on skill set, personality grooming, personality development, public image, communication skills, all of that, to be able to bring the best out of people and be successful. Whereas, as I said, character ethic, which he calls it as, are much more on different line of thought, contributing to success and effectiveness. And as I kept using these words, efficiency and effectiveness, I'm sure all of you because we keep using these efficiency, effectiveness things so very often. And the way Covey mentioned, effectiveness is all about uh, the difference between management and leadership. As Peter Drucker says, management is doing things right, and leadership is doing the right things. Okay, and as I already said, Covey is heavily influenced by Drucker's writings. Okay, so effectiveness is that where the things to what are the things to accomplish. If you are knowing that, that's much more effective than just accomplishing things. So activity versus accomplishment, uh, and most of the time we are busy doing some activity or the other, and we take pride in saying we are busy, we are into some activity or the other, but what are we accomplishing, and did we really want that to be accomplished by us? Those questions is what Covey was always mentioning about, which drives us to the so-called effectiveness, that goal attainment and goal striving, than just focusing on the activity part of the thing. We are busy climbing the ladder of success without even realizing that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, which he says. Okay, so the time when we realize that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, maybe half of our lifetime is over. And again, the desire to start all over again, the desire in the habit, is so very weak at certain age groups. Okay, so we give up, we quit, and all kind of other things happen. Okay, so that's how he brings us the efficiency, effectiveness part of the story, because the way we define success, the way we define efficiency, the way we define effectiveness changes. It's very transcendental, and it's kind of culture to culture, it keeps changing. And that's how he has seen why this literature is differing in the way we define success and efficiency and effectiveness. So then he says that there are 4 levels of leadership one should really pursue, and he kind of starts with personal, okay, personal leadership. Then the personal leadership is I myself, and then interpersonal you with others, and then managerial. Here, managerial doesn't really mean some kind of organization or something. It can be, but more of a team, more of a family, more of a unit where you belong. And organizational, which is more from either a system or a society angle. Okay, so at what levels of leadership we operate is how do I start trading on this kind of 4 levels of leadership? How do I position myself? Where am I? Who am I? Those kind of things he talks about. And then he starts off by saying 4 levels of leadership is always starts from the personal, and never from the I mean, because our interaction is limited in this online platform, I'm not really seeking your input right away in this discussion, but generally we do take a lot of inputs from the people who are following this, and we ask them, you tell us how this 4 levels of leadership Covey describes it as. Is it from the organization to managerial to interpersonal to personal, or from personal interpersonal managerial to organization? Because both ways it works fine, because it is a system which influences us. Okay, and managerial, family, unit, teams. Okay, so how do you look at this picture? Is the way he understands and portrays it is it the entire 7 habits is inside out story than outside in. Okay, for the time being, the entire book which he talks about the journey of success, the journey of effectiveness, he draws it from inside out than outside in. Okay, that doesn't mean that we do not acknowledge the external environmental outside forces operating on us, but then throughout his habits he do say he mentions how it's we who respond to the outside environment and how much of contribution we have in that. And then we can always debate on nature, nurture, and all of that. So here, the personal level of leadership which he talks about, he says the competencies which people are very, they have fetish for which are the competencies required on this 4 levels of leadership. How do I go about starting? What should I have? What should I demonstrate? So when people ask that kind of questions at a very personal level of leadership, he says that you must develop trustworthiness. Okay, I'm sure all of you must have heard at some point or the other people saying, you got to trust me somewhere. You must have heard these sentences. Somewhere you must trust me, or by directly demanding, please trust me. Okay, but it's a revelation for most of us, even though we have knowledge, skills, and all of that. When it comes to these kind of personal to interpersonal space itself, there is a huge disconnect which we experience. Why people don't trust, in spite of knowing me or you for so many years, I don't think there is a trust. We experience these things primarily because Covey says, at a personal level of leadership, it is trustworthiness which plays more important than trust. And trust is never talked about at a personal or individual level, but at an interpersonal level only. And it's a known thing, but somehow we become ignorant in our interactions and exchanges, and we still expect people to trust us. Okay, so there's a huge knowing and doing gap is there, and you got to be trustworthy to be able to develop trust with others. And it's a reciprocal concept at a trust level, whereas it is an individual level concept at a trustworthiness. So you cannot expect trust unless you have trustworthiness. Then at a higher level, unit, family, team, you become much more empowering in nature the moment you have trustworthiness, trust, empowerment, and at a society and organization level, alignment. So better alignment will lead to better empowerment. Better empowerment means there is an interpersonal trust. Better interpersonal trust means there is a individual level trustworthiness which is rich. So this is how he talks about the 4 levels of leadership before he embarks on the 7 habits. And he also says how we go about trust worthiness, because a lot of people ask, it's a very simple thing to talk of trustworthiness. How do I build trustworthiness? How do I become trustworthy in the eyes of the other? That is interpersonal. Okay, so as you can see, the trust is an interpersonal level, understanding, and trustworthiness is it with you. And he says that there are 2 bases for which you can easily develop trustworthiness consistently. That is character and competence. Okay, and character is something which, as we spoke about earlier in the character ethic also, some things which you live by principles. The entire thing which he calls it as the 7 habits are principles and values. Principles are outside natural laws, outside of you. Values are something which is subjective interpretation of those principles which you lead by. But overall consequences are always determined by the principles. Okay, so the moment you have, we will have more clarity as we go by, because every habit we will show you how there is a underlying natural principle, universal principle underlying it, and the way we can put the value on it. Okay, so the value you put on the natural principles of life will determine what character you have. And of course, the competence which all of us understand is the skill set. Okay, so a lot of the time we, in interviews and other kind of spheres, or even in normal exchanges, we keep talking about the person is a very nice person. As a person, he or she is very nice, but the job profile doesn't suit him, or the kind of skill set is not very right. Okay, but as a human, he's a very good person. Okay, now what do we mean by that? That means, is it of no use? Being a good person is of no use because you do not have competence? Or you have a very good competence, great skill set, but character is, which they say Dila. So you have very good competence, but you do not have a good character to support it. There also it doesn't serve the purpose. And what does this serve the purpose really mean? As I said, effectiveness, not efficiency, but effectiveness. So when you have balance of both character to support competence and competence to support and drive your character that way, to be able to be purposeful and serve the purpose, that's where you will build trustworthiness in the eyes of others. And that automatically leads to a reciprocal trust. Okay. So next time when all of us, by mistake also, when we say, hey, you got to trust me, we better, eat our words back by saying, am I trustworthy in the first place? And this is how the entire, he portrays the organizing framework of 7 habits in a maturity continuum model, which he calls it as maturity continuum. That means how a progression of a person happens from dependence, independence, and interdependence. Okay, dependence is the attitude of I. Okay, I, me, myself. And independence gives you the attitude, dependence is the attitude of you. Okay, you. That means I'm dependent on I'm dependent on some system, I'm dependent on my family, I'm dependent on my friends, I'm dependent on the system. So it's an attitude of you, and independence is the attitude of I. Okay, so how will one progress from dependence to independence and independence to interdependence? Okay, and this, from the attitude of I to attitude of we, interdependence is an attitude of we. So it's you here, it's I here, and we here. How do we progress ourselves? Because we are living in an interdependent society, we are not leading a isolated life, and there are certain things, very catchy labels which he uses, beautiful way of organizing these 7 habits this way, and he makes the 7th habit outside this realm, and how one progresses from private victory to public victory. He weaves a very interesting story around, but all of this is a overlapping one. I want you to imagine, a soccer field. You need not be overwhelmed by how do I start getting all these 7 habits right away. How do I move from dependence to independence to interdependence? You need not be overwhelmed, because just like if you see, if you're near a goal post and you stand at arm's length and slowly pull one string of the net, what do you see happening there? You will see that slowly, as you pull one string of the net, you will see the entire net coming to you slowly and gradually. And it's exactly like the way these 7 habits are organized. You can start from anywhere. You can start from fifth habit. You can start from 3rd habit. You can start from anywhere. You just have to hold on to one habit, and slowly and gradually, as the net comes to you, the entire thing, just like a web, how it comes to you, these 7 habits are very overlapping, and the entire thing you can realize how it just get internalized into you. And 7th one, which he says it as a something to, which is to be maintaining this entire journey in a maturity continuum model. Why continuum is, it is a progress, it's a development, and any progress and development, there is underlying the concept of change, and change is the only thing which keeps happening. And when change happens, what happens? Okay, we have to make sure that development happens when change happens. Okay, we have to ensure that when change happens, prosperity happens. We have to ensure that, otherwise change anyway keeps happening. Okay, so he talks of this change model, and then we will have some kind of a Q&A session, so that we can start the habit 1 from the next session onwards. But the way he sees these change happen, or continuum happens, or progress happens, is the journey happens, is the basic change model. The way he gives is this. Now, I can always ask you, where do you see this, a cyclic one, where do you see the change begins? Is it at do? Is it at get? Is it at see? Where do you think this change can start from, as it is anyway cyclical? And Covey says, you can start from anywhere, but a major impact would be there when you start uh, change at the C level. The C, which he calls it as a paradigm. Okay, paradigm. The way we see things, if we change that, the things we do will get changed, and the things which we get change, and that gives us a feeder to the C. Okay, so he calls it as a see, do, get, and he uses this see in a very significant manner. He says a lot of things depend on the way we perceive things, perception, paradigms, paradigm shifts. He talks about all of these concepts. Yeah, this is where so we have to challenge our paradigms so that we can start seeing different things which we have never saw before, or the kind of processes. That means what are the things which we are doing, what are those processes, what are those behaviors which gets us the results, okay, and which impacts the stakeholders in a different manner. But as you can see, the principles are always at the center, and these principles are not physical laws. These are, he calls this as a natural laws, which are outside the person, but they are universal across humankind, and hence they are at the center. Okay, so like for example, compassion, uh, punctuality. What are these? These are human laws which are universal. We treat them differently, we understand it differently in different cultures, but the concept doesn't go away. The experience is still there. We really understand what is the meaning of punctuality, irrespective of which culture we belong to. Okay, so these are those principles which are human principles, natural laws. Yeah. Okay, and universal, timeless. He calls it as timeless because as long as humankind is there, they will be there. And values is the worth or the value which we give it to these principles, because punctuality is there, but am I punctual is the value. Okay, I understand what is punctuality, but what is the value I give it to punctuality is the value. So self-chosen belief. So I understand what is punctuality, but I need not be punctual. Okay, so that's the value I give it to time. So that's how he differentiates between human principles, natural laws, not the physical laws like gravity and other things, but human social principles which are universal, and the values which we give, the worth which we place on these principles. And this is how the entire journey would be from dependence to independence to interdependence. Achieving, he uses his catchy frames of words like private victory, public victory. Private victory is a win over the self, but public victory is not winning over others, winning along with others. Okay, so there are a lot of popular ways in which he got the attention of these fundamental values which everybody must imbibe. If you see some of those paradigms from history, we don't like their sound. Groups of guitars are on their way out, so you know where Beatles are. So the kind of paradigms which we must challenge, if at all any change must happen, it has to happen at the paradigm level, at the C level, so that do and get are in alignment. Look at this. I have no political ambitions for myself or my children. Look at the person who is saying this, and look at the timelines. Okay, so we end up eating our own words because the way we see things is the way we do and the way we get the results. So if you see this, how do I start looking at this? We do not see things. We see things. How do I start reading this? Okay, hence he gives a lot of importance. If the change has to happen from dependence to independence to interdependence, let's start our change from the paradigm. Can we start challenging the way we see things, the way we perceive things? From that, it will be much more effective to implement the change or effect the change than start looking at the behavior directly, is what he emphasizes here. And before we wind up, he spoke about for this change to happen, how we get influenced always by the social mirrors. That is the kind of norms, let's say about IIT norms. How do things get done in IIT? What is the strong norms of IIT? What is the culture of IIT? If anything has to happen, any change has to be brought about, what are the kind of norms? So we somehow, because we are a member of this larger society or larger community, we somehow mirror in our effort the larger community beliefs and norms. Okay, so social mirror theory always says that person is incapable of self reflection. Okay, and Covey says that we have to challenge that, because a person's potential is much more than what others are put together sometimes. So how do we challenge social mirrors? And the more we believe in social mirrors, mirroring others perceptions, others views more strongly, and getting influenced that in the behavior, and we somehow make that happen in the self-fulfilling prophecy, we somehow fulfill ourselves on what people believe about us, and we care for their validations, we care for their approval. Okay, and we fulfill it at the end of the day. So how we got to be warned off from social mirrors and self-fulfilling prophecies, and kick off on the change cycle, and on a self-reflection journey with principles at the core of this change. And he also talks about and warns us before we kick off the change cycle on the P by PC balance, which he talks about, which leads us to effectiveness. I'm sure all of you know the famous fable on this, but he kind of draws parallel to how we have to balance the production and the production capability. So if we are the production capability, how are you nurturing yourself? How are you aware of your embodiments? How are you aware of your own faculties, so that production is continued in the right direction? Okay, most of the time, how let's say how many of us know our what's that your health report, how many times you have gone for health checkups. We continue to exploit, just like any other organizations or industry, we exploit our own selves, and that too in the right direction. There is no guarantee. So we kind of exploit our resources, and we deplete our resources without even kind of repleting them with any kind of care or nurturing of those capabilities or assets. Okay, so how to ensure this P by PC balance, which leads us to effective results? He talks about in one of the habit, which we will come to that, production and production capability. So he only says that please do take care of production capability. Production will be automatically happening. And the last concepts which he talks about is the EBA, emotional bank account, where he talks about all said and done, how much ever efficiencies, production, all of that, industry, all of this we talk about, it's the people who get the results. We are the ones who is, making this show happen. So how do we, since everything is boiling to people, what kind of a relationships which we must ensure to have, so that this entire production is ensured? So he kind of draws parallels to the transactions, the relationships which we have in terms of deposits and credits and debits, and it cannot be a overdraft account. So you got to be very careful whenever you are having exchanges and interactions and relationships with others. What kind of a deposits you are making, what kind of withdrawals you are making. Okay, sometimes you have short-term withdrawals, maybe for a long-term deposit. Like for example, in a mother-child relationship, maybe the mother would say child to come back home quickly from the play, because the child has to study. So it's a temporary withdrawal for the child. It's not a deposit, but then in the long term, for the child's the so-called perceived success or perceived development, the mother would say that it's a deposit. So it's a different thing for adults. Do you see the deposit which I made as a deposit, or do you see it as a withdrawal? So these kind of social mirrors are always there. We have to manage the perceptions. How do we do that at a not at a surface level, but at the underlying level? And that's what he calls it as building trust, which strengthens the relationship. And how do we, lessen the withdrawals? So these are some examples which he has given about the deposits to be made with others and withdrawals to be avoiding, like breaking promises. As simple as that. Not committing, not showing up when you have actually promised. Disloyalty, anger, or seeking first to be understood. In meetings, what happens? Everybody is busy, rehearsing what next to say, than actually listening or hearing at least to other person's point of view. So what are those deposits and withdrawals which you would like to make in your relationships? Key relationships is what he also talks of as a EBA challenge. Which are the relationships which you want to really improve on? Okay, and then the PBI-APC balance. So that's all about the foundation principles. There is when we take this foundation principles itself, it will be typically 1.5 to 2 days on going through each of these things in a very much detail, so that people have experiential exercises to be able to understand this in the way Covey intended. Because these are they look, when you see each of these things, they look pretty simple. So the entire essence is in the way they are arranged. Am I getting that entire essence, or am I seeing this each habit in its own isolated manner? Okay. So, and he says that once you have these foundational principles, I'm sure most of you have experienced how a building gets built with strong foundation. And these foundation principles and values, and some of the concepts which we spoke, serve as the foundation for these habits. Okay, so hence we started off with that, and then we can quickly see how these things, the change cycle which he talks of, gets aligned to these 7 habits. And he says that whatever you have learned, can we have a 3-person teach, first person, second person, and the third person? How you can share some of your learning, some of these experiences, so that you develop, and the significant others and the key relationships also develop. So how do you capture, expand, and apply is what he emphasizes. So that's all about it. So before we begin the first habit, I would be covering the first 3 habits in the next session, that is completing the private victory, and then moving on to public victory. And then in the last session, I'll take you through the 7th habit and the wrap up, so that we can have a coherent understanding of the maturity, having a progress through dependence, independence, and interdependence. So that's all from my side. Now I'm open to questions.
Dr. Lata, I have a question. So actually, actually, first of all, I want to thank you for taking time out to take this lecture and also develop it over a series of lectures. So what I found is, when I tried to use some of these principles in my group with the research scholars, and we are finding it very useful. So I'm just wondering, is it possible to make it into a package, right? Something tailor-made to the needs of a research scholar, like let's say at IITM.
For the student community?
Yeah, for the student community, is it possible to package this into in future? I mean, I'm not saying no, like
yes,
and
yes.
give
In
sort of
fact,
workshop or something.
Yeah, even for teens, students, there are several versions of it. So we can do that.
That will be nice. I mean, I think it really can be very effective for students.
Yes. Any question? I mean, this is not. Please do not restrict this to reduce it or dismiss it to a book, because this is about all of our lives. So any questions? Anything which there are no right answers if you really look at. But even if we have the right questions in the mind, and I think we have served our purpose. the endeavor is to find these answers somewhere, and we will end up realizing that there are only good questions. Yeah, someone asks, ma'am, can you elaborate more on the self and the public victory? See, public victory, as I told, public victory is not victory over others, but victory along with others. Okay, the win is not by putting others down. That's not public victory. Typical elections or otherwise, we are not putting anyone down so that we win. But how do we collectively win? And that's what they say, win-win. I'm sure this is like times immemorial, we have been using these words like win-win. And this remains as a concept more than a reality. Because it's always one party wins, other party finds it difficult to consider their win as a win. And they are happy to call it as a compromise than really calling it as a win. So it's the public victory is something which is not a victory over public or victory over all others, but victory along with others because we are interdependent. Whereas self is something which is private victory. Private victory is, can I have control on my own self? And which are those forces which are which are impacting us that we are not in control? Are we even aware of those forces which are operating on us? The enemies, they in our things we say, raga, dvesha, krodha, mada, matsarya. There are so many enemies. We need not look for others as enemies. There are demons sitting in us. So can we have better control on that? That's private victory, which he calls it as. Though he doesn't refer to the six demons, but he does mention about how do we have a better control on our own self in the self-reflection and the self-journey mode, so that we have a better understanding of ourselves. From you to I, what is the progression? How do you move from you, which is a dependent phase, to I, which is independent stage? And that he calls it as private victory. And there is no rule that it has to start from private victory only, then only I can move to public victory. There is nothing like that. There is no sequence. You can experience a lot of we kind of interdependency, because of various different reasons you are in that space and you have had more of a public victory to be experienced. And that only helps you to connect back to your private victory. So there is no sequence per se for this. And that's the reason it is a cyclical change which he mentions. Yes, Rituraj, I missed some point from you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Ritu.
Can you show some more light on the social mirrors, like how you can overcome the basic norms of society on passing judgments on your capabilities or your success? Because everybody or everyone else is different from other person. So judging in a same same dhacha, we can say, or skeleton
Yes.
defined by society.
Correct.
Means everyone cannot be fit into the same set. So can you elaborate?
Yes.
Can you show some methods or some techniques which can be used to overcome the social mirrors?
Yes. See, social mirrors and self-fulfilling prophecy go hand in hand. The moment we seek approval and validation from the others in our environment, we somehow, since we are living in an interdependent society, whether we like it or not, we are influenced by the cultural and social influences. Like the immediate social influence is our own family. Okay. So it need not be always friends and some distant others. It can be as close as family members also. So what is it that I get? It's a reciprocal influence, social learning. Okay, we have several theories to support this experience, like how Bandura says, we all learn through observing others. Okay, a child learns through observation more than conditioning. And anyway, social learning is also happening through conditioning. Okay, so we somehow seek approval and validation from important others in our environment, and somehow we fulfill that self of ours to live that. And we are not putting a judgment on whether what we are showing is the right thing or wrong thing. All of that is a different, moral stand altogether, ethical stand altogether. But we end up getting influenced by significant people in our lives, and that's how we learn. We get conditioned automatically unless we have our own reflection. We are on the wrong side of our eyeballs, Ritu. If you really see, we cannot see ourselves. We see life through others. Hence we do get influenced by others in some way or the other, and the purpose could be either to seek approval, either to seek their inputs, either to compete with them, either to show that you are nobody, I am the better one. The purpose could be anything, but others really matter, okay,
Yeah.
for the kind of things which we are in. And that's what the last 50 years of literature which he is saying is completely from 1920s. It has been the success, efficiency, effectiveness is all understood as determined by others, not
Yes.
determined by the virtues and the principles which are universal, which are shared by everybody. The success is not determined by the principles which are shared by everybody, but success is determined as approved by others. Is it?
Or
That
as
is
you
what
portray.
he's questioning. Yes, Ritu.
Okay.
Okay, so social mirrors and self-fulfilling prophecy goes so hand in hand that we always care for, others, others approving it.
Yeah.
And as Covey is influenced by Rogers' writings. Carl Rogers is a popular psychologist. He gave the concept of self concept. Okay, so am I just a puppet of all these environmental and societal things? Do I get to see only through the eyes of others, or can I look at myself also, not in the mirror, but can I access my own self? What is the knowledge I have about myself? And in the one of the habit, he talks about the faculties which all of us have, all of us possess. We do not use that much, but we draw heavily from the eyes of others. So the success is also getting determined and defined by others' terminology and not our own definitions.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. See, I want a lot of these questions to be discussed and debated. There is, as I told, there is no one answer for it. It's just different perspectives. As I said, change happens only challenging the paradigms. The way we see things, if that is challenged, do and get will automatically follow. So, what paradigms all of us would like to challenge? And as I said, this is entirely inside out. That means, what can I do? It starts from that. So we cannot say, see, I am doing right only, but others are not cooperating with me. We end up saying that, no, I'm good. I'm able to, I understand things. I have knowledge. I have right skills. I have certain understanding about my own self also. But since we are living in interdependent society, I get a bunch of, not so cooperative people. So these kind of things is what comes always, especially if, from teenagers' angles and young adults. They always get influenced because that's the age, and biologically also, socially also, psychologically also, there is a heavy influence of environment on this gullible phase of life. So how we still develop the self concept and see, because it's just others are just a reflection of us. So we do end up talking about a little bit of philosophy, but then Life is that. And these ideals are being put to use in industries. So you can see, whether it is presidential leadership, parliamentary leadership, or social movement leadership, or personal leadership. Why do these things matter then? How do businesses find sense out of these things? You go to any website of all of you are sitting for placements. uh, you open the website of any company. First you will see is their mission statement. I'm sure when they come for PPT and other things in the campus, they first drive their vision, mission statements, goals, objectives. What's their vision? So they start with the C, paradigm. What is this company's paradigm? What are they chasing? What are they seeing? Which they are expecting you as an employee to see also. So everything starts from seeing. A lot of the time disconnect happens because the way you see or the things which you see is not the ones which I see. And then how do we run organizations and institutions when we don't see eye to eye on what we are actually seeing? How do you think alignment will happen? So things are very, very different at a public victory space. The moment you involve one more person, things dynamics change. Hence, can we first start with private victory, where I, me, myself, can I know better about myself? Can I have better charge and control about my own self? Then anyway, the reality is out there. Any further questions? Because it's important that we ask questions, not that I will be in a position to answer any of that, but at least we can in our discussions and debates we can talk about it. See, more the experience, experience in the sense of life's experience, either in the age or other life's experiences, the person becomes much more silent, uh, because the heaviness of knowledge and the skills, make the person go silent. But that doesn't mean that they do not have questions. Everybody has questions. Everybody has their own questions. Okay, and that's what I said. At least we have a pool of questions where we can start discussing.
Or maybe people can mail to the speaker and then they can collate all that and respond in the next round of.
Yeah, even that can be done.
Lecture.
Yeah, somebody said, can you tell us about effectiveness versus efficiency in the goose analogy? Okay, efficiency is, as all of us know, anybody wants more output given the least input. With least input, the input could be time, money, anything, effort, anything should be less, but output should be more. Okay, then you are considered automatically great, efficient guy. Okay, and that's what entire world wants. Those are efficiency models, and we have have so many great models which we can adopt to increase our efficiency. Okay, more, always more with less. But all of that, is it in the right direction? And is it serving your goal? Is it serving all of the production which you have produced? all the produce, is it what is needed by the people for whom you have produced? I created so many units of production, but there are no takers for it. But I'm still called as efficient guy, but doesn't serve any purpose because there are no takers for my produce. Okay, so how do I be efficient at the same time serve the purpose and serve the goal? Okay, so doing things right so that you become very efficient, yes, and also doing the right things. That makes a good balance in a person. That's all, it as simple as that. Do the right things and do things right, as Drucker says. Okay, and when it comes to Goose analogy, P by PC balance is what he is talking about. Because you are producing it, what is the nurturing and caring of the asset which is giving you that result? What are you doing on that front? Is it a balance or is it overdrawn? So that tomorrow you kill the goose expecting more results. Okay, because you do not see the asset as something which you can further invest on. Are there investments or are there exploitation? If we exploit the assets, there is no further production. But if we invest in the asset, there is a lot of returns. Okay, so P by PC balance is exactly that. PC is you. Please invest in your own self so that production is great. But you entirely busy producing and not taking care of the you who is producing it. There is there can be breakdowns. There can be we have in personality psychology, you have type A personalities who are workaholics, who are very achievement oriented, very ambitious, very taskmasters. One after the other, they have so many achievements to showcase, busy doing something or the other. But early 30s, you will hear in the newspaper that this person, CEO of so and so, suddenly had a massive heart attack. And it's just a news item for us. Okay, we will be shocked and okay, great. That means we have to take care of ourselves. And it's a very short-term understanding and realization, and we resolve our issues that way temporarily, and then go back to focus on the production, but not on the capability. How do I build my capabilities so that production sustains? Most of the time, nobody talks about sustainability of the production because the focus is only on the production and not on the production capability. So that's the analogy which he uses, Karthikeyan. Great. As Professor Srinivasan said, if you have questions which require all of us to discuss, you can also post. We can take it up in the sessions. And you can also, as we go through the 7 habits, the private victory, public victory, and the 7th habit to maintain whatever we have said and sustain whatever we have said, most of our questions also get answered. We do get some perspective on our questions. Okay, but do make a note of your thoughts, your perspectives. And if you think, even after looking at private victory, public victory, and the maturity continuum, the way we are looking at, it still doesn't get answered, we can definitely, discuss in a group so that we have more better learning.
Okay, so Dr. Lata, if there are no more questions, shall we conclude for the day?
Yes, Prof.
So actually, I'm really glad that this lecture has happened, and also thanks to you again for coming forward to give a series of lectures, and I hope we'll have more of this kind in the future. But I feel this subject is so important because in IIT we constantly think about designing systems, producing systems, and all that, we never think of ourselves. That's what the speaker was saying.
Very true.
I think we need to have actually maybe a center or something which talks about this kind of individual development.
True.
How do you develop people, right? We'll think of developing machines later. Okay, so
like for example, how do we learn to love? How do we learn to love ourselves, and how do we learn to love our neighbors, and how do we learn to love others? Is there any school which can teach us this? Does IIT teach you this? So as Professor Srinivas is mentioning, these are not really talked about, but these are what is needed and felt by everybody. So before we close, I would reiterate the 3% teach thing which Kavi mentioned. As we go along this 7 habits journey, private victory, public victory, all the things which he talks about, do talk about these things to at least 2 others or 3 others. Okay, so it just reinforces, and there is nothing new to learn. We will be reinforcing whatever we have learned, and some challenges on whatever we have learned. So it's again up to the person which ones to challenge and which ones to reinforce. Okay, so I think that's about the things. Let's keep things very simple, not complex, because we love to generally models and other things are very, very complex models. Complexity increases, we think it is very great. But let's keep things very simple, and let's see how this goes further. So thank you so much. That's about it from my side, Professor Srinivas.
yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Lata. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.